again, and welcome to American Top 40. I'm Casey Kasem, and I want to thank Dave, debuting this week at number 36.
And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment from very high above all the puerile and idiocratic forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday.
Idiocratic. See, that's why I couldn't do your job.
What? Well,
I would have to use
one of many
exactly
reasons.
the same spiel every day, or I would get totally...
Well, I mean, it takes practice.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, so does running an HOA. Last night, I attended my first HOA meeting, and I don't know that I'll attend another one, but it was fascinating. I mean, a whole bunch of people that really have no power whatsoever, but think that they are in charge of a huge fiefdom. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. And when you ask a question, it's almost as though you're insulting them. And then my favorite part, and by the way, I have to tell you, there's a good reason why I record just about everything. Because when somebody says, I'm going to run a meeting by Robert's Rules of Order, and then they have no idea what they're doing, I mean, it's a fascinating show. I'm going to have to go through the recording and play some of it for you, just because it blew my mind. Like I said, I don't know that I'll go to another one, but it was an interesting experience.
That's that worthy of a geek alert? We need some sort of a sound for a geek alert.
No, we don't. No. But, it's... I spoke a couple of times at it, just questioning why their math didn't add up. I mean, these are people that are in charge of, adding up all of the dues that you pay for them to do. I don't know exactly what it is that they do, but all I did was ask them, hey, why does this number over here not match this number on your spreadsheet?
They're just doing the dues.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing, but it's not correct. Well, welcome to the program, my friends. We got a lot to talk about today. The government shutdown is about to end. It's not quite done yet. And so we're going to talk about that. I've got some great sound bites from the newest member of our political family, the Communist in New York. Ken, I don't know that you've heard all these sound bites, but I have to tell you, I'm excited for you to hear them.
Thanks to the technology I have, I really don't have to hear them.
That's true.
I can
You
play
don't,
them,
but
not listen.
But it's also
Horse crap.
Oh, yeah.
all right, my friends. First story is from the Daily Wire. The shutdown deal packs a surprise as Republicans strike back over phone snooping. Now, before I get into this, I just finished up an interview with Representative Harriet Hageman, which will be available on the podcast later on this morning. I'm thinking about, 11 or maybe a little bit after. But I did get her perspective on exactly what was happening with the government shutdown, what's going on what was going on in the Senate, and now what the House has to do. But the deal's not quite done yet.
I think we need to take just a second and explain the difference between the podcast and Cowboy State Politics
Oh, we
live.
do?
Yeah, because there were some people that I know of that I thought would have known better.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, I listen to that thing all the time and I never hear you.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
all right. So I have the Cowboy State Politics podcast, which is the same thing that it has been the last almost 6 years. On December 3rd, it will be 6 years that I've been doing this program. But anyway, it's just a straight audio podcast, which you can find anywhere that you get any other podcasts: iHeartRadio, iTunes, Amazon podcasts, wherever. There's even some places that I don't even know that exist. I get emails all the time that, hey, this person is hosting your podcast. Oh, well, thanks for letting me know that you are actually a website. So anyway, there's the podcast. And then that's broadcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And I try to get it out around 10 o'clock, but on days where we do this program.
And that's just exclusively audio.
Yeah, it's just only audio. And so on days that I actually have a live broadcast, the one that you're watching right now, it comes out a little bit later. Then every Tuesday through Friday, most of the time, we do a live program, which is broadcast on most of my social media accounts, Facebook, YouTube, X, and on Rumble. And again, that's every Tuesday through Friday, and we broadcast that from 8 until 10. And then if you miss an episode, you can always go back to YouTube or Rumble, and all of them are archived there. I don't know how many hundreds of shows we've done, but it's a ton. By the way, a little bit of celebratory. I don't even know if I have any celebratory music here. I don't. Anyway, so big day. Here it is. Okay, that's enough of that.
You got to warn me when you do that.
So anyway, on the podcast, the other day, the podcast hit 375,000 downloads, which is an incredible number. And by the way, Cowboy State Politics was and is the first podcast to ever hit these numbers in the Cowboy State. If you are looking at Cowboy State, if you're looking at podcast records, if there is such a thing, it is Cowboy State Politics. So 375,000 downloads. And very soon, probably after the beginning of the year, we'll have done our 1,000th episode of the podcast.
Yeah, and FeedSpot, I don't know what it is right now, doesn't matter. But
it goes up and down.
Yeah, it goes up and down, but we've been hovering around the number 30 mark.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit lower now. But so if you go to the
that's
website.
because I've been gone too much.
Well, I know. If you would actually do your job, my ratings wouldn't be dropping. But so if you go to the Cowboy State Politics website, let me just find it here for you, and I'll show you on the screen. Let's see here. We have to go to this section and to find the links. I had to move it because Google. But if you go to the About section of the website and then you click this link, it'll show you the top 100 podcasts in the entire country. And notice some of the names that are on the list: Ben Shapiro, Allie Beth Stuckey, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Daniel Horowitz. Oh, there's the Charlie Kirk Show. Now, I'm not quite up at the top, but last time I checked, we were around in the 40s somewhere. So let's see where Cowboy State Politics is. There it is, number 47 today. So the top 47 on the list of the top 100 podcasts in the entire country is Cowboy State Politics. So anyway, so there you have the rundown of the difference. I think it's pretty awesome. Of course I do, because it's my show. All right, so back on the program here. No, we're not going to hear that story yet. All right, so the shutdown. There's a surprise in there for the Democrats, and, you know, they've been so focused on just being obstructionist with Trump. And I don't know that it really matters what it is. If it is anywhere in Donald Trump's orbit, if his name is somewhere tangentially attached to it, the Democrats are going to oppose it, to the exclusion of almost all else. From the Daily Wire, and I quote, "Republican senators caught up in Jack Smith's phone record seizures may soon get their chance to strike back thanks to a provision quietly tucked into a bill the Senate passed Monday night. The provision was included in a bill that funded the legislative branch and was part of the package passed by the Senate to end the government shutdown. It would allow senators to sue for damages if the government accessed their phone records without their knowledge. And, you know, in Wyoming, we have a tendency to think that, well, that stuff doesn't happen here. That's only something that happens in Washington, D.C. or in other states. But the truth is that a lot of what you're seeing in the news does affect you here in Wyoming. And to this specific story, Cynthia Lummis, Senator Lummis, was caught up in this whole phone record scandal thing. The Jack Smith and the January 6th committee tapped their phones. They got their phone data. They recorded voicemails, got text messages, all without any of the senators knowing. And there's kind of a peculiar law, and I don't know if it's peculiar. I think it's peculiar. Law concerning members of Congress and members of your state legislature, and that is it's called the speech and debate clause, is what it is. And so, Ken, this is a good example for you. So, whatever Ken says on the floor, and sometimes you got to pay attention to him. Sometimes it's hilarious, but anyway, whatever he says on the floor cannot be subject to a lawsuit. Right? If he's debating a bill or happens to tell somebody, don't get your panties in a wad, whatever. He actually said that. But whatever it is, he can't be sued for what is said on the floor. And those communications with, say, his constituents are also privileged. So if you live in Ken's district like I do, and you were to send him an email and ask him a question, well, that communication is privileged because it's you asking your legislator. So nobody can FOIA those emails. But that's not what Jack Smith was doing.
I can't be sued, but I can be mercilessly ridiculed by the press.
Yeah, ridiculed by the host of this program. No, I don't ridicule him. I do make fun. Well, maybe that is ridicule. But anyway, so Jack Smith, he got all the phone communications from a bunch of senators. And as Harriet Hageman noted in, I don't remember which interview it was, but her point was, who wasn't surveilled? Because it's not just those 6 people or 7 people that showed up in the email that exposed all this. It's probably a lot more. It just happens to be those names that were on that specific email. Back to the piece. Any senator, quoting now, whose Senate data or the Senate data of whose Senate office, that's a weird sentence, has been acquired, subpoenaed, searched, accessed, or disclosed in violation of this section may bring a civil action against the United States if the violation was committed by an officer, employee, or agent of the United States or any federal department or agency, the bill says. The provision applies when their Senate data was acquired, subpoenaed, searched, accessed, any of the above, and they could be entitled to up to $500,000 per violation. And when it relates to accessing phone data, per violation would be per text message or per phone call or per voicemail. So the numbers add up very quickly. Now, if a senator is under criminal investigation and there's concern about evidence being destroyed, which is what Judge Boasberg claimed in his order, saying that this is why you can't tell the senators they're being surveilled, because he claimed that they would destroy evidence. But if there is a concern about that, officials can delay notification, but only for 60 days. The provision comes after Senator Chuck Grassley revealed that he had uncovered evidence that the FBI analyzed the metadata of phone calls from several Republicans. And let me just tell you what metadata is real quickly. Law enforcement doesn't necessarily have to know what you say on a phone call. If they have the time, the date, and whom you called, and the duration of the call, and then who those people talk to, it's pretty easy to draw a picture of what you were discussing. And this started coming about with the Patriot Act, when the NSA was surveilling millions of Americans. And if you remember, it was a testimony by James Clapper in which he was directly asked if they had surveilled a whole bunch of Americans, and he said, not wittingly. Okay, but what they did do is they got a hold of all of the metadata of millions of Americans, and they were able to determine from that data to draw a pretty close picture of what was being discussed. So, for example, the metadata on my phone will show you that I talk to my wife, that I call Ken frequently, and that I'm frequently calling and talking to elected officials. Well, it's pretty easy to figure out why I'm doing all of that, because it's this program. Law enforcement is way more sophisticated than that, and so acquiring data from top elected officials, that's a huge violation for a number of different reasons. Let's see here. The FBI took those actions as part of Smith's Arctic frost investigation, which led to President Donald Trump being charged in Washington, D.C. over accusations that he tried to overturn the 2020 election. The Biden administration also turned over Trump's government-issued phone to Jack Smith, the actual phone with the SIM card in it. So this is bad enough, but anything that happens in Washington, D.C., has a way of filtering down to your local municipality, your county, your city, your state. And so the actions that law enforcement takes at the federal level end up showing up in other investigations, your local sheriff's department, your DCI or whatever. And so it's not just a problem in D.C.
You know how it gets to Wyoming?
By carrier pigeon?
The Freedom Caucus has a D.C. overlord sitting there. Texting us every move to make and telling us how to
that
think.
is how Nate Martin determined who is sending you guys
got
messages.
Metadata.
Oh, that's a story I can't wait to talk about. We're going to do that a little bit later on in the program because I have no idea where that's going to go. But anyway, so that gives you the rundown of what's happening with the government shutdown. And again, on the interview with Harriet, which you'll hear on the podcast this morning, she runs through where the House is actually at. They've yet to vote on that bill, and from what she said in the interview is they're scheduled to vote on it by 4 o'clock today. So by 4 o'clock, maybe the government shutdown will be over. But that's providing, of course, that they have all the votes. And therein lies the biggest problem we have with state government, with local government. Because just because somebody has an R at the end of their name does not mean that they're a Republican. That means that's what they call themselves. It's no different than, men identifying as women and claiming that it's, wait a minute. If you claim to be a Republican and you actually aren't one, does that mean that you're in? Never mind. From the Washington Free Beacon, an article entitled, These Senate Democrats Were the Shutdown's Loudest Critics. Now they're condemning the deal to reopen the government. This, my friends, is the very definition of gaslighting. So we're against it. I was against the bill before I was for the bill before I was against it. The classic John Kerry flip-flop. But that's what the Democrats are doing. So now that the deal is done, they have to attack the Republicans for passing it, because that's what Democrats do. From the Free Beacon, some of the Senate's loudest Democrat critics of the government shutdown have quickly become the loudest critics of the deal to end it. Who would have guessed? Senators like Bernie Sanders, a Vermont independent, did you know that Bernie Sanders has never held a real job? Not one time. And he's been in politics for 70 years. Almost, it feels like 70 years. But he has never, ever had a real job. Let's see here. And John Hickenlooper, a Colorado Democrat, repeatedly accused Republicans of stripping poor families of supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits and causing healthcare premiums to skyrocket. Several, like Ed Markey, Amy Klobuchar, and Mazie Hirono, said that cruelty was the point. All right, let's talk about that cruelty business for just a moment. Ken, what is your new favorite quotation? A government big enough to feed you everything you need is big enough to what?
It's not really a quote, but the concept. If they're big enough to feed you, they're big enough to starve you.
And what has happened? Well, there are a ton of families that have been experiencing that very thing.
You know who's primarily at fault, in my view?
I probably have a list.
The churches.
Ah, you're right. Yep.
We have kind of abdicated our duty and given it to government, and that has been one of the most fatal things. We did the same thing with education.
Absolutely, we did.
Eventually, the church is going to have to rise up and reclaim its position.
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way, because it is impossible for government to participate in charity. Whatever the government does is not charity, because guess whose money they're using to do it? Yours and everybody else's. It is not their money to give, my friends. It's yours. The government doesn't have its own money. The only way that it gets money is stealing it from you. And so it is not charity to give your own money back to you. And by the way, With the shekels come the shackles. So anytime the government hands out your money to other people, there are restrictions that come along with that, or at least there should be. There's either explicit restrictions or there are implicit ones. The explicit restrictions are you have to do X, Y, and Z. There are certain hoops you have to jump through to get whatever funding it is. So, for example, the workforce center in Wyoming. A lot of times there are grants available if you want to go through some sort of training program, cosmetology, for example. You can get money to go to cosmetology school, but the carrot and the stick there is you actually have to go to class, and you have to actually go through the program. That's different than the implicit restrictions.
So, forgive me for taking us back just a few seconds, but I made a connection there that I think is fitting.
I'm about to get to it.
Yeah, well, we're going to back up a little bit.
Taking me back. You really are a Republican. You're dragging me back to the past.
I want to live in the Stone Age when. Never mind.
Did you get a backache carting around your birth certificate?
I get in trouble. No. So, if you're dependent upon government to feed you, to take care of your health care and all those things, what happens when you become the problem?
Prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
So there we have it. And you're going to hear that soundbite several times during today's program. But there are implicit restrictions when you take money from government also. And those are always the ones that hurt. So, for example, there are a ton of people in Wyoming that are dependent upon SNAP benefits for their SNAP and WIC. I mean, I don't know what the number is, but it's pretty big.
$5 million a month.
There you go. From the House Appropriations Committee, it is $5 million a month that we spend on those. So the restriction is you end up being totally dependent on it. Now, if you try to, get yourself out of poverty and go get a job and provide for your family, those benefits go away. And so the restriction is to get them, you have to be dependent on them. And if you are dependent upon taxpayer assistance, you're going to end up starving if there is a government shutdown. And that is exactly what happened. And it is not the fault of Republicans. The Democrats had the chance over 14 times, and Harriet actually talks about this during the interview on the podcast. But they had a chance over and over and over to fund the government and to fund all of these programs, including pay for our troops, and they refused to do that. But if you are dependent upon government assistance, you are also dependent upon them wanting to starve you, which that is exactly what happened. So back to the piece here from the Free Beacon. Senators but some of those lawmakers are now condemning a deal that 8 senators who caucus with Democrats struck with the GOP to reopen the government, which would allow SNAP payments to resume. The measure, which advanced in the upper chamber Sunday night, would fund the government through January 30. So we're not even talking about a long-term funding bill. This is just another stopgap measure to get us, 2 months down the road, which also means that in 2 months we could be doing this all over again. But it provides partial funding for essential services and unwinds some federal layoffs. Republicans also agreed to hold a vote on extending the Obamacare subsidies set to expire at the end of December, a notion that wasn't on the table before striking the deal. All right, so these Democrats that they were for the shutdown before they were against the shutdown. I've got a video if you want to play it for me, Ken. Let me find the title for you here real quick. Let's see here. It's called Democrats Backtracking on the Shutdown. Take a watch. Take a listen.
What we're looking at right now is some 20 million people seeing a doubling in the health insurance premiums. In my state of Vermont, we're hearing that people are looking at a tripling or a quadrupling of the health insurance premiums.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad
vote.
Well, the easiest off-ramp for the president is to use the $5 billion, which is available at the Department of Agriculture, that is specifically set aside to take care of this event that is about to unfold, which is to take care of those who are the hungriest in our nation.
But this legislation does nothing concrete to lower costs or protect health
if you're
care
really concerned
for
about that.
millions of Americans from MAGA Republican attacks.
It's what we do to try and make sure that they can stay at work, keep our economy rolling, and keep a roof over their heads. You wonder why so many people end up homeless. Well, if we start cutting away all these supports, you're going to see homelessness rise up like we've never dreamed of. I mean, I voted no just because. That's so pissed off. I'm just frustrated. That you're right, 40 days, and they still. We gave them every chance to negotiate a moderate. Doesn't have to put the whole thing back, and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it. I was against it before I was for it, and now I'm against it again. The Democrats can do nothing but lie because their ideas, their policies, the bills that they put forth don't work in the real world. And the only way that they can convince you that they will work is to lie about it. I mean, they all do it, and there's 3 perfect examples of the Democrats gaslighting you into believing that, oh, no, it's the Republicans' fault. Oh, no, it's still the Republicans' fault, which the truth is it's been the Democrats the entire time. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, I've got yet more examples of radical Democrats completely gaslighting you into believing things that aren't true. So we'll do that when we come back. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday. I'm David Iverson, doing what I was born to do with talent given to me by God himself. Welcome back to the program, my friends.
With a little bit of help from your friends.
Yeah, with a little bit of... Don't you dare play that song.
No, actually, there was another one, and it disappeared, and that's probably a good thing.
Probably, maybe, yes, a good thing.
I do have this one, though.
Oh, Lord. From the Daily Wire. The View's hosts tirade over the shutdown. Ending is a masterclass in gaslighting. So again, gaslighting is attempting to convince you of things that aren't true. So there was that great, where the term comes from is a great movie about I think he's a jewel thief, and his wife is constantly, what are you doing late at night? Why are you working? Oh, it's, none of this stuff is true. You're not seeing it. And that's what the Democrats do all of the time. Oh, no. Don't believe your lying eyes. Just listen to what we're telling you. Well, there is no better example of that than the women on The View. Notice I didn't call them the ladies of The View. There's a difference. From the Daily Wire, and I quote, "Look, let's be clear. Republicans run the House. Republicans run the Senate. Republicans run the White House. So obviously, this is a Republican shutdown. Except that we have this little itty-bitty thing called a cloture vote. And that is, to advance anything in the Senate, you have to have 60 votes. Nothing. They can't even talk about a bill without having 60 votes. Sunny Hostin used her time on Monday's broadcast of The View to blame Republicans for the government shutdown, which was caused by Democrats who refused to vote for a clean continuing resolution, and trashed Democrats for voting to reopen the government. All right, so the bill that was passed by the Senate and will be passed by the House later on today, hopefully, only funds the government at current levels. And apparently the deal was to go through January 30th. It didn't add anything more. It didn't really take away anything. It's just, let's just keep things going, and then we'll talk about everything later. But because there was the cloture vote, you had 8 Democrats that were needed to pass the continuing resolution onto a vote. And so it doesn't really matter if if Republicans have the House and the Senate and the presidency, and most of the Democrats claim that we have the court too, which is another bizarre claim. But anyway, it doesn't really matter because you have rules that have to be followed in the Senate, and there are rules in the House. Now, before I go any further, let's talk about the filibuster for just a second. Every deliberative body operates on a set of rules. So most of them, it is Robert's Rules of Order, like the HOA meeting attempted to do last night. But so your city council, your county commissioners, those meetings are run on Robert's Rules of Order. When you get to the legislative level, so down in Cheyenne or in Washington, D.C., those meetings are run by what's called Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. It's really the same thing. I mean, there are a couple of nuanced differences, but generally speaking, it's all the same. There's a couple different rules in there that cloture vote is in there. But generally, we're talking apples to apples here. Now, those rules, a different price tag too. Those rules exist to protect the rights of the minority. So in the case of the Wyoming House, there's only 6 Democrats in the House. Now, if rules did not exist, then the Democrats would not have a voice at all. They wouldn't be able to get any bills through. There wouldn't be any committees. They wouldn't be able to make any difference whatsoever. But the rules exist so that the folks who are in the minority, the Democrats, do have rights. And there are ways that they can stop a bill. There are ways that they can postpone a vote. There are ways that they can object to something. And so without those, the minority party wouldn't have any rights at all. Now, in Wyoming, one of those happens every budget session. It's that every bill that is not specifically related to the budget has to have a 2/3 vote to be introduced. Okay, well, right now, the minority, that is the Redcoats and the Democrats, they have over 1/3 of the votes in the House. So any bill that is not budget related, they can stop. They can kill it right from the beginning. And my hope is they kill just about everything, and we can not pass a whole bunch of meaningless laws. But anyway, those rules exist to protect the minority. And so that is also one of them that's been used with this government shutdown. So go ahead and play the first video clip of, let's see here. Let's go with the first one, The View. It's the Republican shutdown. Play it for me. Uh-oh.
chance of negotiating health care subsidies. I just remember all of the people who are coming in and hoping that people would vote them in and say, yes, you can be this person, or you can be a judge, or you can be this. And they all said, no, we're not going to mess with anything. No, we're going to leave everything as it was. I have no faith that they're going to negotiate and come back to the table. And you know, I'm glad that folks, maybe, because again, we have seen, you say this is going to happen and then it doesn't happen.
Right.
So surprise me and show me that this is really, that people are going to get their money, that people are going to get the money that they are entitled to. It's not a gift.
Right.
They're entitled to this money during the when there's a shutdown. You're entitled to that money.
Yeah.
So
There's
this
a
idea
contingency fund for
that they're giving in and giving this as a gift, it's not a gift. No. You know, it's I don't understand. So is he right that Americans wanted Democrats to keep fighting? You know, this would, and you know, people will get rehired, supposedly, federal workers, and reinstate SNAP benefits, but a 50-50 chance of extending the subsidies, I don't believe it.
All right, so there it is. It's the Democrats giving in to the Republicans, and that, oh, they should have held the line. It should have done this, should have done that. Well, the truth is that that politically, the Democrats are in a pretty perilous position because it's they played a gambit, and it's one that they thought historically that Republicans get blamed for shutdowns, but that's not the case this time. Now, they did make a few gains after the last Tuesday's elections, but all of the polls are showing that people are viewing the Democrats less favorably because of the government shutdown. And so this particular one, though, I mean, we're not talking about like the majority of people being in favor of the Republicans over the shutdown, right? We're talking about, differences of degree. So it just, Republicans are slightly more favored than Democrats.
That line in there, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody come right out and say that someone is actually entitled to the fruit of another man's labor.
Mm-hmm.
Where the hell does that come
from?
But
that's the Democrat philosophy.
I know it, but usually they don't say it.
I know.
They try to appeal to us, you got to be kind. You know, we've got to be benevolent and that sort of thing. Now they're just flat out saying they have a right to your money.
Yeah, well, I mean, you bring up a great point, Ken, that years ago, you wouldn't hear any discussion of socialism. And if you heard a politician utter the word socialism, man, it was a big political firestorm. Holy crap, there's a socialist. And it would end up being a big, gigantic scandal, and the politician would have to walk it back. If you go back to the McCarthy era, which, by the way, Joe McCarthy was right. There are communists in our government. History proved him correct. Anyway, you would never hear a Democrat actually come out and admitting it. But now the masks are off. The last 5 years, it has become more acceptable. And this is a result of a changing electorate, by the way. But it's more acceptable to say, yeah, man, I'm a democratic socialist. Why not? I mean, people are entitled to this money.
What changed the electorate? The electorate?
Well, I think that it is the fault of the education system.
I was just going to say public schools.
Yeah, and if you look at the University of Wyoming, for example, and I know we just did the interview with Ed Seidel, and he claims that the university is welcoming and we don't do all this DEI stuff anymore. Yeah, I don't believe it. But for many, many years, the University of Wyoming ranked among the top liberal schools in the country. I know we don't like to admit that, but it's absolutely the truth. And so you go to school to become a teacher at the University of Wyoming, and you're indoctrinated into all of this socialist garbage. And then Wyoming high schools get around 70% of their teachers from the university. And, the other 30% or so, I mean, they're educated at other liberal institutions also, so it doesn't really matter. But they then get jobs in the high school, and then all of a sudden, socialism is cool.
I got a phone call just 2 days ago from somebody who lives here in Sheridan. Mm-hmm. His grandson is at the University of Wyoming taking a psych class. And the professor was saying just a couple of days ago, boys can be girls, girls can be boys. They can change that. And so he
No. We don't have any of that DEI woke stuff anymore.
When the entire establishment is so steeped in that mindset, you're not going to get rid of it like that.
No. And it's just, I mean, like I say, it's the changing electorate, and it's the whole thing. So, in the 50s, most people could, most families could exist, could live on a single income. Dad would go to work, mom would stay home and take care of the kids. And then fast forward another decade or two, and then it requires two incomes. And then all of a sudden, there's nobody at home to take care of the kids, and so we send the kids to school. And then enter the baby boomers. Now, the baby boomers ended up being like children of the 60s, and free love and peace and all of that. Well, when they started having kids and they start raising kids, then how do the kids come out? Free love and free peace, and it's everything is groovy, man. And then those kids grow up and have kids, and then pretty soon you end up with a generation that is pretty well beholden to the Democrat Party. Now, the difference is Generation Z, and those are the kids that went through COVID, that were shut up in their house for months on end. In some states, children were not in school for over a year. So in some cases, in California, more than a year. And so those kids are, and there's a lot of polling that suggests that particular generation is way more conservative than all the others, because the mask was pulled off of what was what was happening in the schools. So the short answer to your question, Ken, is education. The long answer is a cycle of indoctrination that has been happening in our education system for a really long time. All right, now go ahead and play the other View video soundbite. Video clip, whatever it is.
Let's be clear. The Republicans run the House. The Republicans run the Senate. The Republicans run the White House. The Republicans run the Supreme Court, as far as I'm concerned. Do
you know who we have to blame for her? Bill O'Reilly. Believe it or not. The Mr. O'Reilly himself is the person that got Sonny Hostin involved in TV. But yeah, anyway, he is to blame, and that's why. Well, I don't know. I actually like Bill O'Reilly, but anyway, it's his fault that she's on TV. All right, go ahead and continue.
Was a choice by Republicans to cut SNAP benefits. This was a choice by Republicans to cut ACA subsidies. This was a choice by the Republicans to gut the federal government and federal employment. Democrats had nothing to do with this. I want an opposition party. I think the Democrats caved. I think the Democrats let down the American people. And like you, Whoopi, I have absolutely no faith that the Republican Party will come to the negotiating table in good faith. You do something like this, shame on you the first time. You do it twice, 3 times, 4 times, shame on.
But the point is that with Whoopi Goldberg, it was, well, the Democrats caved. And it's they have to come back to the table. With Sonny Hostin, it's exactly the opposite. It is the epitome of gaslighting. Now, not everybody on that stupid panel is of the same opinion, but most of the time they are. And usually it's a one message show. Republicans bad, Democrats good. But it's a classic example of gaslighting. And that, so there we go. The movie poster of Gaslight. If you like old movies, this one is a great one. If you want to know where that term comes from, it's a perfect example. Good job, Agent 29. All right, moving on. Enough of those people. All right. This one, oh man, this has been a question that I have pondered over, man, since I was in high school. But here it comes. And this will tell you that really the
3 weeks, huh?
Shut up. This will tell you that the political arguments really never change. From the Daily Wire, Trump responds to critics of foreign policy, says he must watch over the world. I've got a video of it. Go ahead and play that, and then we're going to talk about it. Maybe. Maybe if you could find it.
I don't see which one you're talking about.
It says, Trump presidents have to watch the world.
Ah, okay. Thank you for that.
Woman, but I don't know what happened. She's lost her way, I think. But I have to view the presidency as a worldwide situation, not locally. I mean, we could have a world that's on fire where wars come to our shores very easily if you had a bad president. We had a horrible president, and we ended up with Russia, Ukraine, and we ended up with other disasters, too. Don't forget, I put out 8 wars, 9 to come. I think I'll get the other one taken care of, but I put out 8 wars. And look at the damage that Russia, Ukraine has done to us as a country. I mean, we spent $350 billion. We're not spending any money anymore. Now they pay us through NATO. You know, I got NATO to go from 2% to 5%. Well, that's very important. When you're president, you really sort of have to watch over the world because you're going to be dragged into it. Otherwise, you're going to be dragged into a world war. I think if I weren't president, first of all, that war would have never happened if I was president.
That's good enough.
And if I weren't.
So presidents have to watch over the world. That sounds a heck of a lot like, well, we're really the world's policemen. So this is an argument that one of the very first ones that I started tackling. I think, man, when I first joined, I was a sophomore in high school when I first joined started debating, I should say. And this was one of the first questions. So are we the world's policemen? Now, Trump, he's making a slightly different point. He says that presidents have to watch the world because if not, you could be dragged into a world war. And I think that that's really what he means. But the larger question is, are we really the world's policemen? Here's what the Daily Wire says. U.S. President Donald Trump brushed off criticism that he is too focused on foreign policy on Monday, arguing that the President of the United States has an obligation to, quote, watch over the world or risk being dragged into world wars. Quote, you just listened to the soundbite. Trump was responding to a question about Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, a longtime ally of Trump, who argued in a Monday morning Truth Social post that Trump should focus on domestic policy rather than on foreign policy. Quote, I would really like to see nonstop meetings at the White House on domestic policy, not foreign policy and foreign countries' leaders, she said. Start by hauling in the health insurance companies' executives and start formulating our Republican plan to save America from Obamacare and the ACA tax credits that have skyrocketed the cost of health insurance, exclamation point. Now, the president paused a moment before addressing Greene's criticism as he spoke. And then he said, I don't know what happened to Marjorie. She's a nice woman, but I don't know what happened. She's lost her way, I think. Now, there has been a lot of talk in Republican circles, conservative circles, that it has to be America first and America only. But I would contend that that's not possible, that we live in an increasingly interconnected world. You know, it used to be, we used to operate on this idea of mutually assured destruction. And that was, hey, we've got nukes, you've got nukes. If you push a button, we'll push a button, and we'll destroy the world. And that worked for a while in that, hey, you know, evil country A is not going to act because they're going to be completely demolished. And we wouldn't do that either. But now we operate on a principle of mutually assured economic destruction. And that is, our economy is inextricably tied to every economy in the world. The Tokyo Nikkei can be off 30%, and by the time the stock market opens, our stocks will be dropping, you know, probably not 30%, but you'll see a big dip. So the world is an interconnected place. It's not, I don't know that we can operate on the Monroe Doctrine anymore. The Monroe Doctrine was basically, Europe, you handle your business on your side of the world. We will handle our business on our side of the world, and never the two shall meet. But I don't think that that's possible anymore.
This interconnection is really interdependence.
Yeah, that too.
You know, where do we get all of our rare earth minerals so far and our chips? Where do we get this, that, the other thing?
We don't even make our own drugs for aspirin anymore.
Yeah, and it's the same principle that I was talking about before. A government big enough to feed you is big enough to starve you. And we have made ourselves dependent upon the rest of the world. Therefore, we cannot withdraw. We cannot pull back. We need to take care of ourselves first. America first. Have you ever heard that?
Well, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, and I think that you're bringing up a good point. That you cannot, and let me give you an analogy here, that you can't help you can't help another family unless your family is strong, right? If you attempt to do that, you're going to destroy your own economic situation or drain your bank account. You shouldn't act to help somebody else without helping yourself first. I think that is perfectly acceptable, that we have to focus on America first.
Yeah.
However, that does not divorce us from, I'm going to use the word obligations around the world, but it's also enlightened self-interest.
You ever ride an airplane?
I have.
If the mask comes down, the masks come down out of the overhead compartment.
So this is airplane, not COVID.
Yeah. What are you supposed to do first?
Help yourself.
Put your own mask on. That way you have enough capability to help the person next to you.
Exactly right. Okay, so we have to focus on America. That's true, but not to the exclusion of all else, because if we do that, it inevitably hurts us because we are interconnected and we are interdependent. And so whatever we do has reverberations across the world, and the same holds true for us. Now, the other point that Trump is making is that if we don't pay attention to world affairs, we will be dragged into another war. And it is, in some cases, it is to the benefit of other countries to have us dragged into a war. If you're a country that is pretty much running on ideology or theocracy, like Iran, it actually serves your interest for America to be dragged into whatever conflict in the world because they operate on chaos. And, actually, it is in their theology. It's getting way off topic here. But there's this, in Islam, there's this idea of the 12th Imam. And he is, this is oversimplifying the matter so much, but he's kind of like the Jesus figure. But he doesn't, it's not the same. The 12th Imam comes around through the world burning. Okay, so now the 12ers, as they're known in Iran, occupy some of the higher seats of power, like the Imam, the Ayatollah is a 12er. And so it serves the interests of Iran to have chaos in the world. And the best way that you can inflame the Middle East is if you drag America into a world war or into any war. And, just creates chaos. They can set off more suicide bombs. So the question is, are we acting as the world's policeman, or are we acting in our own self-interest in stopping all of these wars across the globe? Because Trump's a businessman, and the one thing that is detrimental to business is chaos, right? You can't strike deals if you're involved in a war. And so I really think that getting involved in stopping all these wars really is self-interest rather than, abandoning America first.
Yeah, how long has it been since we fought a war on our soil?
Never.
Yeah. And
the Revolutionary War
came out in the First World Wars. We decided it's better to go fight on their soil.
I agree.
Than have it come home to roost. And that idea is still valid. We can go take care of things in other places. But I think our record may be coming to an end.
I hope not. I mean, I hope you're wrong about that. But I mean, look at 9/11. I mean, that was the war brought to our doorstep. But in any case, I think that calls for America first, America only, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others are going on about, I think that's really, really short-sighted.
Yeah, 9/11 was a war brought to our shores, and then 25 short years later, we have a Muslim communist as mayor of New York.
Weird how that works out, right?
What could go wrong?
We will never forget. Never, never, ever forget. Well, it seems like a lot of people forgot. We're a little bit early for our second break. We're going to go ahead and take it. And when we come back, more stuff about the Biden auto pen. That's going to be fun. And then, who paid for Zoran Mamdani? You're going to love this when we come back. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. A record that, well, frankly, the mainstream media, I wish that they would try to do that, but, well, they're just incapable of it because they lie so much. And it's, I think it's a compulsion, really. If you join the Wyoming Press Association or you're in the mainstream media and you work for B. Wayne Hughes, I think that's probably one of the job qualifications is that you have to be able to lie or at least stretch the truth to such a point that it doesn't even really matter anymore. And, I tell you this all the time, but it's extraordinarily important. Do your own homework. Don't listen to a word I say or listen to it. But make sure that you do your own reading so you find out for yourself if it's true or not.
Careful who you read, because some people think I'm J.R. Riggins.
Oh, we got to get to that too. Okay, we got plenty of time. So who exactly paid for the communists in New York? Big question, right? You think that he just went out and did his grassroots fundraising and knocked on every door in New York City and said, hey, give me $5 here, $10 there. Probably not. Now, first, make no mistake, he is a communist. Ken, play the soundbite that says, unapologetic about our socialism.
What the purpose is about this entire project, it's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists. And we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism.
Oh, okay. So there's socialism, right? And I see online all over the place that, there's a difference between socialism and communism. You're right about that. But one is just a pit stop on the way to full-blown communism. And here's the difference. In socialism, you still own your business, right? You still own property, but you're not in control of it, right? The government tells you how to operate your business. If you've ever read the book or watched the movies, Atlas Shrugged, really good example of socialism. So yeah, the railroads were owned by private companies, but they were told what to do. That's socialism. Communism is you still don't control your company and you don't own it either. Government owns the means of production. Play that soundbite.
But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right? Or whether it is the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize
the means of production. So that is a direct quotation from the Communist Manifesto, which, by the way, if you want to know what communism is, you should read that. If you are an American at all, you will find it terrifying. But seizing the means of production is exactly how Karl Marx said that you usher in communism, that you have to control companies. So then, who is it exactly that funded Mamdani's campaign?
Before you get there,
yes,
if you seize the means of production, then you have a government that is big enough to feed you and big enough to starve you.
which they are incredible at doing. Communism has been responsible for poverty, misery, and death of hundreds of millions of people worldwide.
So who does fund Mamdani?
We're about to find out. Okay, so now there's another piece of the pie you have to understand here. Mamdani is a communist, but he is also an Islamist. And what you're seeing is the best way to describe it is a red-green alliance. Red being communism, green being Islamic. And the two of them, while they are different in some aspects, have a very, very similar goal, that both of them are kind of Marxist in their origins. That it really is a totalitarian government that is in control of everything. That, in Iran, everything is run on Sharia law. So that means that your daily life, what you wear, what you dress, what you say, where you go, is pretty much controlled by the government, especially if you're a woman. I mean, the whole wearing a hijab thing, not a lot of freedom there. So he is both a communist and an Islamist. So the Washington Free Beacon found a great little video of a woman, notice I didn't use the term lady, named Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour is the head of something called the Council of American Islamic Relations. From the Washington Free Beacon, nonprofit tied to anti-Semitic Mamdani ally Linda Sarsour received millions in public funds from New York City and New York State. The Arab American Association of New York, which is an offshoot of CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations. Where are they? Oh, I just lost my place. Okay, so a nonprofit group linked to Linda Sarsour received $4.1 million in city and state funds over a period of 7 years, public records show. The Arab American Association of New York, which Sarsour led from 2005 to 2017, received more than $3.3 million from New York City and $854,000 from New York State between Sarsour's last year atop the organization and 2024. The state-level funding came primarily from the New York State Department of State. Why can't they use grammar properly? Anyway, with $20,000 dispersed from the Office of Children and Family Services. Its city-level funding is much murkier. One $60,000 payment came from the Department of Small Business Services, but the rest of the funding was not attributed to any particular agency. That was according to OpenTheBooks.com. So, really, Linda Sarsour and her Arab American Association of New York got taxpayer money from New York City and New York State to the tune of $4.1 million. Now, Linda Sarsour is also one of the head people of CARE. Go ahead and play the video clip that, let me see what it's called here. Got it? Okay, go ahead and play this. Listen.
Right now, I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race, but I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just, that it's random that Zahran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zahran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zahran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zahran PAC in New York.
All right, so The vast majority of Mamdani's funding came from the pro-Islamic PAC, which is directly tied to the Council on American Islamic Relations. Now, CARE is a large and prominent advocacy organization for Muslims in the United States. Throughout its history, CARE has been suspected of supporting political Islamist movements, especially the Muslim Brotherhood. In Muslim Brotherhood, you should remember that name. They took over Egypt for a time. Radical Muslim organization that has, they have tentacles almost in every country. So, really, really bad outfit. CARE was founded in 1994 by Nihad Awad and Omar Ahmad, who were both officials at the pro-Hamas Islamic Association for Palestine. Awad and Ahmad, two different people, had attended a summit for Hamas sympathizers in 1993, although the U.S. State Department's only labeled Hamas a foreign terrorist organization in 1997. So the very people that started this organization, CARE, are absolutely tied to the Hamas terrorist organization. The same people that were lobbing missiles into Israel, or are still lobbing missiles into Israel, but that were responsible for October 7th. Over the years, CARE's alleged ties to Hamas have proved troublesome for the organization. In 2007, federal prosecutors reportedly designated CARE as a co-conspirator of the Holy Land Foundation, a group that was eventually convicted of financing terrorism. CARE is an opponent of American anti-terrorism policies like the Patriot Act, citing civil liberties concerns. Their leaders are extremely anti-Israel, claiming that terrorist organizations Hamas and Hezbollah are actually liberation movements. Following the terrorist attacks against Israel by Hamas on October 7th, CARE Executive Director Nihad Awad seemingly praised the attacks against Israel at an event for American Muslims of Palestine, saying, quote, "I was happy to see people breaking the siege. The people of Gaza have a right to self-defense, have the right to defend themselves. And yes, Israel, as an occupying power, does not have the right to self-defense." End quote. In addition, he praised members of the terrorist organization Hamas for committing the attacks, and it goes on and on and on. So it is Linda Sarsour, who is one of the people directly tied to the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, and the Political Action Committee that is funding Zoran Mamdani. And so, really, yes, you do have a communist Islamist as the mayor of New York. How terrifying is that? That these folks, CARE, who have direct ties to Islamic terror, are now the people that put him into office. What else could possibly go wrong here? I don't see why this is a problem at all. The truth is, my friends, that you should be very, very, very afraid of Zoran Mamdani. Now, if you listen to his victory speech, it was very different than how he campaigned. He was very nice and all smiles while he was campaigning, but once he had won the election, man, did the mask come off. It's truly incredible.
Part of it was his attitude was he kept saying, we've been given a mandate.
Yes.
50.4% of a few people who voted. Yeah. That's a mandate.
Well, and so he didn't even really win with, like you said, Ken, just a few percentage points. So we're not talking about a mandate. We're not talking about, having a majority of New York vote for him. It really was a small percentage.
That said, he is the mayor.
He is very much the mayor of New York now. And it's, I think that it's a good thing that he's only a mayor. But that being said, the mayor of New York has a lot of power. Yesterday on the live program, which, of course, Ken, you missed it, I talked about his plan to replace police officers with social workers. Now, what could possibly go wrong with that one? But his chief advisor, his new chief of staff, is the guy that came up with that plan. There's a lot of bad stuff that's going to happen in New York. And by the way, I think now we ought to start Operation Wyoming Does Not Exist. You know, if you are disappointed about what happened in New York, just Wyoming's not really a state. Nobody really lives here, and it's just I can't explain all the maps, but move somewhere else. From the Jerusalem Post, BDS activist Linda Sarsour, and BDS stands for boycott, divest, and sanction. So it is specifically an anti-Israel movement. So BDS activist Linda Sarsour helped foster Zoran Mamdani's rise to power. And I quote, Muslim American activist Linda Sarsour has long-standing ties to mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani, helping to foster and support his political career over the years. Mamdani said on Twitter in 2020 that he first met Sarsour while they both worked as community leaders of the El Yatim's failed 2017 New York City Council Democratic primary. So Mamdani and Sarsour worked together on a political campaign. A year later, Mamdani was elected to the Muslim Democratic Club of New York, which, according to the group's website, was co-founded by Sarsour, according to the 2018 Facebook post congratulating Mamdani and others for election to the board. So absolutely, the two are tied together. They have close ties to the Council on American Islamic Relations. And like I said, my friends, none of this is going to turn out well for New York. And I think that they're going to get exactly what they deserve. This is what you get when you don't go out and vote, and when you don't pay attention to politics, and you just focus on, whomever's cool at the moment. Let me just give you one example here. Play this one. Show them. Throw my screen up there.
What's your favorite Mamdani policy?
Huh?
What's your favorite Mamdani policy?
My favorite Mamdani policy is probably free buses.
And how do we implement that?
How do we implement that? Have to read through his policies, right?
You don't know the policy?
I have read it, but I don't want to talk about it right now.
Okay, have a good one.
I'm so sorry, I didn't catch that you were recording. Can you not include me?
It's live.
Okay.
We're live. Any other Zoran policies?
No, not right now. I didn't realize you were recording.
There's no way she did not realize that. She looked right at the camera multiple times. I didn't realize you were recording other than the giant stick in the phone that was right in front of us the whole time.
Okay, so the constituency that voted most for Mamdani is women aged 18 to 25 by the tune of over 80%. Incredible numbers. And, so it is a direct example of not being educated. And so, we have a tendency to try to blame voters when elections go poorly. But the truth is, it's the candidate's fault for not reaching those voters, for not educating those folks. And it is, it's a tough road to hoe. But if you're not the guy that's out there knocking on doors, making sure you're educating people, well, then you kind of get what you deserve. And unfortunately, we have a population that educates themselves off headlines and social media posts, and most people don't even pay attention to the article. I mentioned this on the program yesterday. If you pull up any piece from the Cowpie, it is the Cowboy State Daily, you're going to see an article that is probably 2,000 words. Right? Most columns that you read in the New York Times or even the Pravda on the Platte, pretty much any opinion column is going to be between 600 and 800 words. But that's still a pretty good read. I mean, you're talking about a column in a paper. When people that still read newspapers, okay, so I'm old, all right? I still like reading newspapers. But anyway, that's the average length. Well, articles now are around 2,000 words. And the reason they do that is, and I just learned this, I'm kind of proud of myself, but the reason they do that is for Google rankings. So there's more keywords in the article. So the longer it is, more of a likelihood that it's going to be recognized by Google. Anyway, so 2,000 words. And where do news outlets like the Cowpie put the pertinent information? After 1,000 words, so most people don't even read through the article because it's too darn long. And so they are led to believe things that aren't true. And there's a classic example of that happening in Wyoming right now.
There is, before you get there, what they do read when they go to the Cowpie are the headlines.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, it's like, okay, so here's an example. Throw this on the screen. Okay, Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame and PRCA looking to move to Wyoming. Well, of course they should. It shouldn't have ever been anywhere else anyway. Wyoming's the cowboy state. So, yeah, anyhow. But look at the length of this article. How many people are going to read through that entire thing? Not very many, I would say a minority. Well, like I said, there is a perfect example of media misinformation happening right now. So now, 29, you have to explain to me why I have been misled this entire time about what your name is. Why is that? What is your name? What is your real name? I hear it's J.R. Riggins.
Well, there's something about that JR that bothers me because he got shot.
But nobody knows who did it.
And now they want to call me JR, so I don't know. Is there a plot afoot?
Yeah, probably. So what I'm referring to is there are a couple of websites that have cropped up recently. Here's one of them, Wyoming Grit. And the whole idea and their mission, we are Wyoming folks rooted in our state who live our Wyoming values and reject out-of-state funded political influencers and their flunkies, your DC overlords. So their vision, of course, is to stand on their own 2 feet, look out for each other, honor the brand, shoot. Man, that sounds a lot like the Code of the West. And who do we know that incessantly refers to the Code of the West? It could, well, or we'll get to her later. But here's the main purpose of this website. Who is the Freedom Caucus? Now, interestingly enough, a couple days ago, there was an article in the Cowboy. Who is in the Freedom Caucus? Apparently, they called everybody, and they tried to ascertain exactly who you people are.
They come across, or one of the ways that they attack us. You guys need to focus on the real issues in Wyoming. You need to focus on how to fix Wyoming's issues. You're off doing all these other things that don't matter and whatnot. And now for the last 2 or 3 weeks, the only thing they can think and talk about is who's in the Freedom Caucus.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, I happen to know who's in the Freedom Caucus.
And it's not most of these people?
This is funny.
Well, it's okay. So first question, why is there this big effort to expose who is in the Freedom Caucus? Well,
yeah,
because the media has made it their mission to, I don't know, I want to use the word demonize, and that, I mean, it is appropriate, but to make sure that you guys are the bad guys.
If they can put a label on us and say, okay, these are the people, and they go through the list, these are the people that think this.
Yes.
We might want to touch on that. But if they can do that, then they think that they can, as a lump, dismiss us all, get us out of the way. What is so funny about this is they think that we are a bunch of puppets and that this is all orchestrated from above.
It is. You're DC overlords.
If they were to understand the truth that it really is grassroots and how it came about.
But Ken, you're
left.
talking about the media. They're not interested.
They're not
in that
curious,
keyword.
that's for sure.
No, they're not curious, and they're not interested in the truth. Well, here's why this is all happening. Because the left in Wyoming, and I mean the Democrats, and by the way, make no mistake, the Democrats in Wyoming are ascending. Now, okay, so they're hardly a major party, but still. Riddle me this, riddle me that. How did you get 200 people on the courthouse steps in Sheridan, Wyoming on a Saturday to protest this stupid No Kings thing and a dog that was pooping in the middle of their rally? But how did you get 200 people that were there on the courthouse steps? Well, because the Democrats have been making a major effort to get their message out. You listen to KROE here in Sheridan and you'll hear if you listen for a couple hours, you'll hear several Democrat ads. So they are making a big media push. Well, they're doing that with the help of the Wyoming media. And it won't take you that long, but just Google Cowboy State Daily Freedom Caucus, and you'll end up with a slew of articles about how the Freedom Caucus is terrible. And a lot of it is tied back to tax cuts. because the property tax cuts, according to the media and the redcoats and the Democrats in Wyoming, well, that's going to destroy communities. You are firing police officers and you're firing firemen, and why do you hate the children? Don't answer that. But that's the narrative that they tried to create, that these property tax cuts are going to destroy communities. And I don't even know how many articles were written that had that narrative in there. And so it's to create a giant target on the back of all the Freedom Caucus members, that you're mean and evil people and you're just going to destroy communities. And why do you hate Wyoming? So now we're in the second phase of that. So first it was Freedom Caucus bad. And now who is in the Freedom Caucus? Well, the problem is they don't even know. Because it doesn't matter to them, because we're way past the truth part of this, finding out who is exactly in the Freedom Caucus. Now it is all about the target, and the target is any legislator that happens to vote conservatively. Now, here's what I mean by that. Look at the fourth row down, all the way on the right. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay. Third row down, all the way on the right. It's see, Ken.
That's right.
That is not you.
All the way on the right.
All the way on the right. Not as far right as your illustrious host. But there's a picture of J.R. Riggins, and they say that that's Ken Pendergraft. And then the picture of Ken has J.R. Riggins, so they transpose the two.
Scroll down just a little bit. Look at the bottom row.
And there on the bottom, Robert Wharf is actually under John Winter's picture, and
Yep. So you're supposed to trust these people, and they can't even get the little things right.
But they don't care.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
Is that it doesn't matter, because with the narrative, we're way past the truth part. And so this is going to be used for the election. And of course, we know that the Democrats don't really care about truth. If they did, they wouldn't be Democrats. But now it is all about the label. So this is leading up to the legislative session, to where all of these folks generally, and I say generally, they don't always agree, but generally they vote together. There are some of these people that are more conservative than others. A good example, Ocean Andrew, he tends to vote 70% with the Republican majority, but he's the most conservative person you're probably going to get out of Laramie. Now it is interestingly similar to this website. This one was made by Better Wyoming. And I talked about this yesterday or Monday on the podcast. Who exactly is Better Wyoming? It's run by a Democrat operative named Nate Martin. Nate Martin is the husband of Democrat Carly Provenza. And he started, Better Wyoming started and it was kind of an offshoot of this group called Forward Wyoming, which was funded by Democrat now Representative Liz Storr. I refer to her as the George Soros of Wyoming. But here's their list. And if you scroll through here, you're going to see a whole bunch of people that probably, wait a minute, Jacob Wasserberger is not a member of the Freedom Caucus. Neither is Clarence Stivar. Clarence, he's way more outspoken about it. But those two aren't part of the Freedom Caucus. And if you scroll down through, Tom Kelly is not a member of the Freedom Caucus.
Lori Bratton just had an article published.
Lori Bratton just published an op-ed saying she's not part of the Freedom Caucus. So there's a lot of people in here that, aren't even like card-carrying members. But that doesn't, like I said, that doesn't matter to the Democrats and the Redcoats anymore, because we're way past the being truthful about this. Now it's in the narrative target phase.
To them, it's all about labels.
Yes.
It isn't about policy, because when they start discussing policy, we happen to match what you will see in the Republican Party platform. We want smaller government. We want lower taxes. We want to preserve the rights of the unborn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If they talk about those, they lose. But they can fabricate this idea that these are just a bunch of puppets of some Washington, D.C. overlord, and that, man, if they only knew the truth. And, some of them do know the truth. And
they all know the truth.
Scares the crap out of them, because
they
know
the
that
truth.
it really is grassroots.
Because that's part of the narrative, too, is that, it's not these people in Wyoming that are making the decisions. They're just doing what they're told from their D.C. puppet master. But that's part of the narrative, right? That there's all of these people that were elected, and they really aren't representing you. They're representing somebody else in D.C.
They keep talking about all they're interested in these national issues. We need to talk about Wyoming issues.
Yeah, Wyoming solutions for
I
Wyoming
can tell
problems.
you what, if you go out and you go door to door like I have, and you talk to the people that are out there, that's what they're focused on. They're the ones that are watching Fox News. Those are the things that they're concerned about, and we're supposed to represent them.
Yes.
And so a lot of these issues that they're concerned about, we did some polling. We said, okay, we're going to do something about the issues you're concerned about. And I think the truth is out there, and they're going to waste hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to flail against the wind.
Yeah, well, as you can see, I mean, they have the assistance of the Democrats because, of course, the redcoats really aren't Republicans. They're Democrats that they realized that it was much easier to get elected if they just hung an R at the end of their name. But most of them vote with the Democrat majority or Democrat minority over 80% of the time. And if you watch the vote patterns, you'll find that out. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to tie this all up in a neat little bow for you. There's one more part of this that we haven't talked about, but I think it's really important. In a minute. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy state politics is only going to get stronger. This program is expanding faster than I ever thought it would. And it's all thanks to you, my friends. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the program. And as it relates to that, probably tomorrow, Yeah, it's coming fast. I'm going to send out the first Cowboy State Politics newsletter, and I want to send you one, but I can't do that if I don't have your email address. So go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, and you will, the very first thing you'll see is a pop-up that says join my newsletter or something like that. Put your email address in there, hit send, and it'll send it to me, and I will get you on the list for the newsletter. That's going to be just kind of a recap of what happened during the week. Eventually, there will be a couple of blog posts in there. I'm working on starting a blog section of the website when I actually get time to sit down and write. So there's going to be a lot of stuff in there. It'll keep you updated on what happened on the show, links to different podcasts and live shows. So it'll be really useful for you. So go to the website, give me your email address, and I will send you a copy of the newsletter. All right, so before the break, we were talking about this whole media, Better Wyoming, Wyoming Grit, they're all working together, and really they're all Democrats' business. Who is in the Freedom Caucus? Well, there's one more piece of this that I don't want to get lost. How many times have we heard Democrat and liberal red-coated Republicans say the word unity? We have to have unity. Can't we all just get along? No, we can't, because you're a redcoat, and I don't associate with redcoats. Anyway, but we have to have unity.
When the Freedom Caucus demonstrates unity, it just means we're puppets.
Well, yes. I mean, your unity is with your DC overlord puppet masters. But the calls for unity are coming from the Wyoming left. And let's be very, very clear about it. Just because you have an R at the end of your name does not mean that you're a conservative, nor does it really mean that you're a Republican. If you vote with the Democrats, it means you're a Democrat. If what you do helps the Democrats, that means you're a Democrat. So if you happen to be the chairman of a state party and you tell a little fib saying we're going to raise a whole bunch of money and you don't do it, that kind of helps the left, which it sort of means that you're on the left. By the way, I have a great soundbite of that particular person lying. Don't push me, Chairman. Anyway, so unity. You hear that from the left incessantly. But do they really mean it? No, of course they don't, because they're not conservatives and they don't agree that we should have small government and lower taxes and free trade and personal responsibility, and that the government ought to stay the heck out of windmills and they should stop tilting at them. So they don't really mean unity, because the left always operates on a paradigm of us versus them. It's the only way the left can get their message out, because there has to be a boogeyman. Because their ideas don't really work in the real world. The only place that the ideas of the left work is in some university building somewhere when they're all when all the eggheads are gathered around and they can throw out their ridiculous ideas of socialism. But when they're put into practice, they don't work. You end up with bigger government, more government spending, more people that are dependent upon government. And I mean, they always fail. Socialism always fails, my friends. Well, the only way that they convince you that their ideas work is if they create a boogeyman. Look at all the good stuff that we're giving you, and it's these people over here that are preventing you from getting it. And that is what all of this is about. It's to create a target and label an entire group of people as the mean, evil Freedom Caucus. It is us, the benevolent Democrats, versus the mean Freedom Caucus that wants to take away all of the entire Department of Health. So it is us versus them. And so anytime you hear the word unity come out of any of their mouths, you immediately know that they mean exactly the opposite. So, and then the last piece of this is whatever they accuse conservatives of doing, that's what they're doing. And it doesn't matter which example you use, it is almost universally true. So you look at these two websites that I just showed you, who then are the ones that are getting their messaging from? And this is so dumb, because it's like, no, I'm not, you are. I know, I mean, it is really that juvenile.
Oh, ha.
Uh-huh. All right. So anyway, anytime you hear the Democrats say that, you know really what it means. Okay, so there's a piece in the cow pie, and whether you know it or not, this lawsuit against the legislature is still going on. But the piece in the Cow Pie is entitled "Court Fight Heats Up Over Judge's Order to Spend More on Schools in Wyoming." There's a lot. This is a pretty complicated situation here because right now the legislature is in what's called recalibration, and every couple of years, I think it's every 5 years, the legislature gets together and they figure out if they are how they are going to fund Wyoming schools, because it's in the Wyoming Constitution that we have to fund schools as close to free as possible, or it's something like a high quality education or something like that. So right now they're figuring that out. Well, there's this judge, and I think his name is Frolicker. Frolicker, and he ruled in the lawsuit that the legislature has to buy computers and lunch and to make sure that you have school resource officers in the school. And if we're to do that, well, then it's going to require a significantly higher amount of spending. But I mean, just what do resource officers, computers, and school lunch have to do with actually educating students? I mean, the answer to that is nothing. Maybe the computer, but there again, I was thinking about this morning while I was doing show prep. When I was in school, I mean, don't even think about when you were in school, Ken, because you were still working on a blackboard, the little individual chalkboards you all had.
There were no personal computers.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, and the big ones took up a whole room.
Yeah, so, well, when I was in school, you went to the computer lab. Maybe there was a computer in the classroom. But if you had to use a computer, you would go to the computer lab. I remember being in like third grade, and we had all those Apple computers when they first came out, and you really wouldn't do anything on them except play the Oregon Trail. But you went to the computer lab because most classrooms didn't have a computer. And if you ask me, we got educated just fine. I mean, there's probably some on the left that would argue with me saying that, but the truth is, you don't really need a computer to educate a kid. A friend of mine is fond of saying, give me a chalkboard, a Bible, and a math book, and I can teach you anything you need.
That's how it was done for hundreds of years.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, this judge in the lawsuit, let me just read you the first couple paragraphs of this dumb piece in the Cow Pie. Quote, a public school advocacy group... I can't even get through one sentence without my head about to explode. So... the school advocacy group that the Cow Pie refers to is a teachers union. It's the Wyoming Education Association. But it's because the Cow Pie is in favor of everything the Wyoming Education Association is doing that they refer to them as a, quote, public school advocacy group. Okay, it's a teachers union. Don't let them lie to you.
At least they didn't say education advocacy, because the WA is nothing about
It's not about education, but it's definitely about public schools. All right. So a public school advocacy group and 8 school districts are urging the Wyoming Supreme Court not to stall on a lower court's order requiring the legislature to pay for mental health counselors in elementary schools. That's what it was. More money for school lunches and computers and schools and other goods. The Wyoming Education Association, that's the public school advocacy group, also known as the teachers union, and the school districts on Thursday filed an opposition to the Attorney General's office earlier request. The state had asked its high court to pause the Laramie County District Judge Peter Frolicker's February 26th order, which places many new demands on the way lawmakers fund state schools. Frolicker had ordered the legislature to supply school resource officers across public schools, mental health counselors in elementary schools, and technological device for each student. More money for school lunches, better teacher pay, and better assessment of school costs. The state believes it is likely to win the school funding case on appeal and get Frolicker's order overturned, court documents say. It also believes that winning it could put it in an awkward position of having to claw back money it dispensed to satisfy the judge's order while the case is ongoing. The WEA, the teachers union, and school districts called that a narrow view of the facts in 2 different arguments. Okay, so essentially, if the judge's order is held up, then the legislature has to fund all of those ridiculous things that the order demanded. And so through calibration, the legislature would have to add those things in and theoretically increase the amount of money that's given out to each school district. In Wyoming, school districts are funded through a block grant, which means the legislature does suggest how those funds are to be spent, but there's nothing in law that says the school district has to follow that. So basically, it's one big giant lump sum that's given to the school district. Now, let's say that the legislature appropriates that money to all the school resource officers and the computers and the school lunches. And then later, the order is overturned. Well, then how do you claw back that money that would have been given to school districts in error? I would argue that it would be virtually impossible to do, which is why the Wyoming Education Association is making that argument, because they know that once that money leaves the state checkbook, there's no way to get it back, because you would have to rely on individual school districts refunding that money, which, of course, I mean, some of them might, but I doubt most of them would, because it's already spent. School districts can spend money like it's water going through a sieve, man. You're never going to be able to get that money back.
I want to deviate slightly from that and jump to the University of Wyoming, because there's a similar situation there. You know, we had Ed Seidel on, and everybody knows that they're in a presidential search. And so they have the Board of Trustees appoints people to be on this committee to review applicants for the job. You know who does not have a seat and who they've been flatly refused to have a seat on that panel? Anyone from the legislature.
Yes.
Especially conservatives. This is a classic example of taxation without representation. We represent the people. A large chunk of their tax money goes to the University of Wyoming, but we are not allowed to have a say in who's going to be at the helm of that. We also give them a block grant, just like we do to the schools, and we have no choice in what they actually do with it. We can make our recommendations. We can say, get rid of DEI or we're going to defund you.
Which I don't believe they did.
Yeah, no, they just shuffled it around. I could go on for a long time. But if you want an example of taxation without representation, that's
So, Ken,
it.
how much do we spend on education in Wyoming? Just ballpark it for me.
I don't even know if you.
It's hundreds and hundreds of
at
millions
the top,
of dollars.
It's $20,000 plus per student, and I don't remember the student claims. It kind of caught me off guard. I'm not good at remembering the big numbers like that. But then you throw in the University of Wyoming has about a $700 million budget, and about a third of that is funded by the
So
legislature.
the numbers that we had before we did the Ed Seidel interview is that every 2 years, the University of Wyoming, and this is the last budget, okay? So the last budget was $554 million. $500 million to the University of Wyoming, which equates to every man, woman, and child writing a $1,000 check every other year. I mean, that is an extraordinary amount of money for a university in a state with only 586,000 people. I mean, $500 million, and that's just the university. So at the local school level, you're talking, and the number last year was $21.6 thousand for every single student in a Wyoming classroom.
And that doesn't include the buildings.
No.
That's a whole nother deal.
No, school districts don't pay for buildings. The state does, nor do they pay for transportation. And so riddle me this, riddle me that. If you have and just use round numbers, let's say you have a classroom that has 20 kids in it, and you're paying your teacher $100,000 a year, which we're not, by the way. But let's just say that we are, to use round numbers. So at $20,000 per student, that means you need 5 kids to pay for that teacher. Where's the money for the other 15 kids? 15 times 21.6 or $7,000. Where does that money go? You're not paying for buildings. You're not paying for transportation. So where the heck is the rest of that money? And why on earth do you think you can ask for more?
You know what superintendents make? And I'll just leave that there.
Yeah. So the administration, and so Fremont County is probably the worst offender. They have 8 school districts in Fremont County, and some of that is a couple of those are legitimate because you do have the reservation. The reservation kind of is totally different critter, but you have 8 different school districts, which means you have 8 different superintendents, which means you have 8 different vice superintendents, which means you have 8 staffs of superintendents. And you could probably, I don't know, do away with all of them, maybe all but 2.
How many school districts has Natrona County?
1.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sheridan, another good example. There are 3 school districts in Sheridan. You could eliminate 2 of them. Pay one superintendent $300,000 a year, which if you do that, you're going to have the most qualified school superintendent that you could possibly get, and you would still save money. So we spend an incredible amount of money on education, and this judge is saying we have to spend more because we have to give every kid a computer and counselors for elementary school students. Why is a judge saying that we need counselors and school resource officers and computers? I mean, it just seems to me that it's way beyond a question of fact, which is what judges are supposed to rule on, and it is a question of politics when it comes to Judge Froelicher.
Whose kiddos are they?
Good movie.
Yeah, that video was very good. But yeah, and that word kiddo, every time I hear it, just makes my skin crawl.
Yeah. All right. So from the piece, quote, the state argued that Froelicher's order infringes the separation of powers and doesn't defer enough to the legislature, which is a distillation of the people. The school districts disagreed with that take, saying that it was the legislature's own tight-fistedness that landed it in court in the first place. Quote, the state's claim of irreparable injury from commandeering legislative authority misconstrues both the nature of the district court order and the principle of the separation of powers, wrote the school districts. Its reasoning does not apply where the legislature's own conduct violates the Constitution. I ask, and I will not get an answer to this, but what's the number? How much money should we spend per student? What is the number? How can you possibly argue that $21,600 or $7,000 per student per year is not enough? What's the actual number?
Whenever you're in a committee meeting and something like this comes up, the very first question asked, even though we're supposed to be Wyoming Solutions for Wyoming Problems, is, well, what are other states doing? They're not spending $21,000 a student, that's for sure.
South Dakota, last time I checked, spent around $10,000 per student. And if the reasoning of the Wyoming Education Association, the cow pie, and every liberal, red-coated, and Democrat in the state holds true, then South Dakota's educational outcomes should be lower than Wyoming because, of course, money equals outcomes, right? Well, the truth is that Wyoming consistently ranks below South Dakota. So how is it possible that the argument from the Wyoming left holds true that we're not spending enough money on education? Well, there's only one possible answer to that the goal of the Wyoming education system and the WEA is to provide for adults and not students. That it is the administration and teachers that is the goal to provide for them. That's the goal of the education system, not the student. Because if it were reversed, it would not be $21,600 or $7,000 per student. It would be far lower. But, until we're able to convince Wyoming citizens to, flip the Senate, which that's coming, baby, and, to continue to elect more conservatives, we're just not going to be able to make any dent in here. And, frankly, if we're not going to do something about the courts. So, I mean, it's another ridiculous thing. And, we're just going to keep spending money. Speaking of spending money, the minimum wage. This is a common darling argument of the left, that the higher the minimum wage, the better people do, and that, we just need to pay them $20 an hour. Well, there's an interesting piece from Reason.com, which is a great website if you've never looked at it, but it's entitled California's Fast Food Minimum Wage Hike is Killing Jobs. Who would have saw this coming? Well, not the people in California. Ken, I've got a video here, a quick video from Reason.com. It's called $20 Wage Increased Jobs. Go ahead and play that.
After California's $20 minimum wage for fast food workers went into effect last April, some economists expected affected restaurants to cut jobs. So what actually happened? They not only added workers, but did so at a faster pace than the fast food restaurants in the nation as a whole.
Yeah,
or at least
totally
that was the claim of a research paper by 2 labor economists at the University of California. If you actually read it, you'll find that the results trumpeted in the press release and echoed by the media aren't in the paper. In fact, it barely addresses the effect of the minimum wage increase on fast food employment in California. It offers no numbers and no models. There's no evidence that fast food jobs increase after the law was implemented.
Actually, it was the reverse, and I quote, one law killed 18,000 jobs. On April 1st of 2024, California raised its minimum wage from $16 to $20 per hour for fast food workers employed at chains with more than 60 locations nationwide. Let's see here. Quote, according to the research paper that was first addressed by Reason's Peter Sunderman, which is the guy you saw in the video, quote, our median estimate suggests that California lost around 18,000 jobs and could have been retained if the bill had not been passed. The authors initially calculated that, quote, employment in California's fast food sector declined by 2.7% between September 2023 and September 2024 relative to fast food employment elsewhere in the U.S. But they make the point that prior to the passage of the bill, that hiking the minimum wage, fast food employment was on the rise faster in the state than in elsewhere in the country. Allowing for that, for changes in the overall labor market, they estimated that the real decline in California's fast food employment at 3.6% arrived at 18,000 jobs lost. So if you want to decrease the amount of jobs that are available for people, let government get involved. As Ronald Reagan said, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. It is impossible for government to provide actual jobs. Now, of course, you can go work for YDOT, or you can go work for the school, or you can go work for, I don't know, the county or the city or the sheriff's department or the police department, or you can work for the BLM, or you can work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or you can work for the Social Security office or any of those others. But really, those aren't creating jobs simply because government does not have its own money. It's all tax dollars. The only way that you actually increase economic output is if you have an entrepreneur that adds something new to the marketplace so that you have new profit or new revenue that's generated. If it is just a government job, that means it is recycled tax dollars. So you're taking money from one and you're giving it to another. And then when you couple that on top of increasing the minimum wage artificially, well, then you focus employers, or you force employers to decrease the amount of jobs, because people are in business to make money. And if you're forcing them to pay their employees more, they're not going to hire as many. It fascinates me how little the Democrats understand.
I started working outside the home, outside of the dictates of my parents. 1977, I made minimum wage at McDonald's.
I wasn't even born then.
You know what the minimum wage was in 1977?
$1.25.
$2.35.
I was close. Yeah.
$2.35. I started. It jumped to $2.65. We were in tall cotton.
Yeah, man.
So what happened in the meantime? Government started printing money.
Yes. So the minimum wage, and first of all, I mean, it's a flawed concept from the very beginning. But the whole idea was to create a law to where wages had to keep pace with inflation, which, I mean, it was flawed from the very beginning, because if government had stayed out of the way, employers would pay their employees what they were worth. And then if you had an evil employer that was shortcutting workers, well, he's not going to have employees for very long. But government just needs to stay out of it. And let me just give you one anecdotal example. Back in the 1990s, 80s and 90s, and early 2000s, my parents owned a sporting goods store in Buffalo. And we had at one time 10 employees. And I think the minimum wage was like $4.75 an hour, $4.25, something like that. And then I remember one summer where it jumped to $5.15 an hour. Well, that increase fell outside of the employment budget. And my parents showed me the books. Hey, here's the line that we can employ people. When wages get above this, we can't afford it. We won't make any money. And so what happened? We fired all 10 employees and we just ran the store ourselves. But that's how all small businesses operate. You have a bottom line, how much money you have to make to keep the store open, and the idea is that you'll make a little bit of profit for yourself. You can pay yourself and your employees, and just have a reasonable life. But when government gets involved, it eliminates the operation of the free market to pay people what they're worth. Now, if you wanted to increase wages, what you should do is go entirely to a merit-based system. That people get paid for what they're worth, the work that they can perform, the skills that they have, and we wouldn't need to have all of these government jobs. And in Wyoming, we have this statistic is crazy. We have 800 state employees for every 10,000 people that live in the state. 800 for every 10,000 people, and there are exceptions to that. So if you look at Buffalo, Wyoming, I would bet that 70% of people work for government in one way or another. Either it's the school district or the city or the county or the Forest Service or the BLM, or, fill in the blank. But I would bet about 70% of that entire town works for government. And you wonder why we have a problem creating business in this state. And as it relates to that, if you do the math, hey, let me just ask you, Ken, what is the number one industry in Wyoming?
Government.
It is government.
It's government.
It's not coal mining. It's not oil and gas. It is government. It's not even tourism. It's not hunting and fishing. It's not any of that. The number one industry in Wyoming is government. And if you can reduce government, you will increase profits. Get government out of the way, and we can all make a little bit more money. Well, that'll about do it for today's installment of the broadcast. Have a good rest of your week. Well, I guess I should just say have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. But for now, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. See you tomorrow, my